good with these three? Alright, starting with number 2. They give us this point. It's plotted. They tell us it's a direct variation. So we have to remember what do we know about direct variation. It has to be a line. It has to go through the origin. The constant has to be the same through all the points. So because it has to go through the origin, that can be one of your points. Are you okay? Okay. That's what it sounded like, but
I'm trying to hold it in.
you're good. Don't do that. It'll make it worse. Okay. Then because your constant has to be the same, you either can count from here to here, see what that is, or look at this, find your k value, and either keep going up 1 to the right 2 or down 1 to the left 2. If you want to do that like 3 times, so it's somewhere out here, it's fine. You just need to have one other point. So this would work. As long as it falls on that same line, that would also work. Questions on that one? Or, she labeled these equations. One of them is incorrect. You have to figure out which one and why. The direct one is correct. The inverse one, this first inverse one, is correct. This last inverse one is incorrect because this is actually direct.
So we can put the x up in the
If you're talking about this one, this is inverse, yes. If you separated it, I don't know if this is what you're asking. That would technically also be correct, but as long as the x is in the denominator, it's inverse. If it's not, then it's not inverse. If the x is next to your fraction, it's direct. Okay. Other questions on 4? In 5, it says something about he babysits 12 hours, he earns $72. Then babysits 18 hours, he earns $108. We need to figure out, is this direct or inverse? So think about when I was explaining the applications. They either go up or down together, or they do opposite things. If the more he works, does he also earn more? Yes. So that means they go up together. The more hours he works, the more money he gains. So this is an up situation. So because of that, it's direct. Because it's direct, then we can use our values to find our k and then find our equation. So we know y is the total amount of money. So x would have to be the hours. Whether you use 72 and 12 or 108 and 18 does not matter. So if we did 72 over 12, what would our k value be?
6.
Mm-hmm. So that would be $6 per hour. So our equation would be y equals 6x. That means for every hour we could put in and see how much money he's going to get at the end. Other questions on that one? Take out your inverse variation notes if you don't already have them out. Just like last class, I'm going to give you time to practice, and you can either be working on the Khan Academy that's due this Friday, the Khan Academy that you didn't do last Friday, or this practice. We are doing notes after. So in the inverse variation notes at the very last couple of pages, You could do numbers 2, 4, 7, 8, and then in the word problems 7, 9, and 10, or be working on Khan Academy. You must be working on one of these things, not on your phone on other things, not doing other schoolwork. So make sure you're working on one of these things. Let me know if you need my help, have questions, I'll be around. So on the first page, I'm going to quickly kind of go through some of this stuff so we remember what they mean, how we use them, things like that. So direct variation, to find our constant k, we divide y and x. For inverse, we multiply x and y or y and x. That order doesn't matter. The direct variation equation is y equals kx. For inverse, it's y equals k over x. And then they have some examples. Notice the differences between these. For direct, you have the number next to x, number or fraction, whichever. And then for inverse, you have the x in the denominator, so try to keep those straight. To find, like in a table or ordered pairs, you can either use the ratio or the product to see if they're all the same. On the graph, a direct variation is always a line that goes through the origin, and the constant is the same throughout all your points. Your inverse makes this shape. We didn't talk about what this shape is called, but it's called a hyperbola. So if it makes that shape, you know it's inverse. And then to solve for direct, do your y over x for k, and then put that back in and solve. For inverse, do y times x for k, and then put that back in and solve. On this page, we're going to go through some of these examples. So you can determine, are these direct, inverse, or neither? Starting with number 1. It is inverse. We are dividing by x. As we start looking at these, try to avoid going back and looking at your notes. It's there if you need it, but try to see if you can determine it without looking back. What about number 2? Is neither. It would be direct, but because that y-intercept is not 0, it's neither. Number 3, we have to solve before we can do anything. Get y by itself. I'm going to leave this like this first and see if you recognize which it is, and then we'll change the format of it. So it's only inverse if the x is in the denominator, but we have 4 down there. Not neither either. It is direct because we can rewrite this as a fraction next to that x. So anytime you have a number in your denominator, remember that you can rewrite that as a fraction, so that would be direct. Okay. Number 4, you could either solve it for y or think about how you find k. See, is that one of those methods? Which one would this be? Inverse. Because this is your x times y equals k. But if you forgot that, you could also divide both sides by x, and you would get negative 18 over x, which would tell you definitely it is inverse. Right, we're going to skip a few. Go down to 9. This is very similar to the problem you had in your quick check. Sometimes you won't know if it's direct or inverse, so you either have to multiply them or divide them and see do you get the same numbers. So let's say we multiply, just because. Multiply 20 and 1.5, tell me what you get. 30. 2.5 and 12, also 30. 4 and 7.5. Also 30. And then 5 and 6 is 30. So don't assume that it's going to be 30 just because it could change, so make sure you do it for all of them. But because we multiplied for each of these and got the same answer, this is inverse. If you're doing this and let's say the inverse doesn't work, don't automatically assume it's direct. Still check it. It could be neither. Okay. 410, let's start multiplying, see if you get the same thing. 31 and 217.
6,707.
Okay. 20 and 140.
27.
This one. This 27.
Oh no, for the top one.
27. My bad. 28. 2800. Okay. So obviously this is not going to work. They're already not the same. So let's change gears and divide. 217, sorry, 531, 7. 140 and 20, also 7. 119 and 17, also 7. And then 84 and 12, also 7. So because we got the same number dividing for each of these, it is direct. Before we go on to the next page, do we have questions on any of those? Yes.
So if you divide it, it's direct.
If you divide it and they're all the same, then it's direct, yes. If no other questions, go ahead and turn to the next page. For 15, is that direct, inverse, or neither? Why did you say neither?
So it goes to the bottom inverse quadrant.
Okay, let's see, what is this K? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's really 1 over 1, so really there's multiple ones all throughout this. As long as it's the same throughout, it's fine. So this wouldn't be neither, but it would be direct, yes. Would 17 be direct, inverse, or neither? Inverse, so it makes that hyperbola shape. What about 18? Neither. If it's not a line that goes to the origin and the constant is the same, or makes that hyperbola shape, if it's anything else, it's neither. Questions on any of those? Look on this page and the last page, see if there are any others you want to see, go over, have questions about before we move on. 18 we did, 20. Okay, so starting with 20. One, you need to be able to know how to read this. So this is a mapping where the arrows show what x's and y's go together. So you either have to multiply them or divide them to see if it's direct or inverse. So if we start multiplying, 3 times 2 is 6, 6 times 4 is 24, so it's definitely not multiplying. So let's divide. 2 and 3, 4 and 6, but that would simplify. 8 and 12, but that would simplify. And 12 and 18. So let's simplify each one. This would simplify to 2/3, and 2/3 again, and 2/3 again. So this would be direct, inverse, or neither. Direct, because we divided, they're all the same. Any others on those first 2 pages? Alright, so same thing. Whichever one you choose to do first, multiplication or division, does not matter. I always go multiplication first just because I can multiply faster than I can divide. So if I start multiplying, we have negative 48, negative 48, negative 48, and negative 48. So that's just how them work. So would this be direct or inverse or neither? Inverse. Why? because if we're multiplying and the numbers are the same, that's inverse. Dividing is direct. Eva?
How do you know you
You won't until you start it. So if you start dividing first, you'll know that something's not right, because this would be 8 over negative 6, which is divided by 2. So 4/3. 12 over negative 4. If I divide that, that gives us a whole number. So we already have something they don't equal. So then you'd have to switch gears. Other questions on that one, or other questions on these first 2 pages? If not, go on to the next page. So this is really where the joint and combine come into play. Some of them will be the same as what we've already been doing, strictly direct, strictly inverse, but maybe the variables change. Sometimes you'll see more than that, so let's go through some of these. First, this should say square root of. No. Because it printed the same thing twice. So think about these very similar to a direct variation, but some of it might change. So y varies, that means y equals directly with, so we have to have our k constant in there somewhere. It will always be after your equals. And then the square of x. How would we write that part? Not x at the top. I mean, x is going to be next to it, but we're missing the square of.
square root of x?
Not square root. Opposite.
Oh, squared.
Squared. X squared. Or x to the second power. Okay. So then the next one is going to have the square root. It'll look very similar. Y equals k, but then the square root of x. Keep those straight. Don't confuse them. Jointly really just means directly, but there's multiple. So it'll be 3 variables instead of 2 or 4. It depends. So if you want to write that as that really means directly, it's similar to directly. So the variables are going to be next to each other when you write them. Except now this says z varies, so we're going to start off z equals. Still need our k value, our constant. Jointly with x and y, we would just put x and then y right next to them. In this next one, Sujit, go ahead.
That's a z.
That is a z, yes. Z equals k x1. And this next one, it's basically the same thing, but now it says inversely. So when we were doing inversely, we were dividing x. It's going to be the same thing. We're going to be dividing, but now with w. Anyone want to take a guess as to how we would write this one?
I did z equals k plus y together, and I wasn't sure whether to put the half under and then put y or
Put it under all of it. So z equals kxy, all divided by w. And then this last one, z varies directly with x and inversely with the product of w and y. Anyone want to take a guess at that one?
Is it x parentheses w y?
Not quite, because of the inversely, where you have to divide somewhere.
Oh, x divided.
Yes, but we're missing z and some other variable. we know y and w are going to be down here. Yes.
Equal K.
Not
Z
equal
equals
k.
kx.
Z equals kx, all divided by wy, or yw. Right, these should never be k equals unless you're solving for k, which in this we're not. Whatever it says first, z varies, that tells you what it equals. Eva. So k will always be in every equation. If you don't have k, you basically missed your equation. Right? Other questions on how to set up the equations? We're going to go through some of these examples. Some of them will be very similar to what we've already done. Some will not. Some will have variables that change. So variable m varies directly with p. Here our m would be like our y. P would be like our x. We're not going to use y and x, but know that's what they would represent. How would we set up this equation? Eva. M equals Kp. So that would be your equation. Now we can start solving for K. If M is like Y and P is like X, then we can divide those to find K, where K is Y over X. So 75 over 10. Or 7.5. Just like before, take your k value, put it into your equation that you have. So m equals 7.5. Look at what you're given and what you need to solve for. Here we need to find m when p is 16. So put 16 in for p. And figure out what m is. Did you make the pass already? And then come right back. What is your m value? The check method we did before works the same here. So if we take 120 and we divide 16, we should get 7.5. Do we get 7.5? Yes. So you know that works. Questions on that one before we move on? Okay, let's try this next one, Eva.
So where did you come from?
This P or which one are you talking about?
So you got 7.5 and then it went over to the other side.
From this one.
Oh, so you already got it back.
So whatever the original equation is, the only thing you change is your K, then you put in your missing values, which was. Okay. For number 2, R varies inversely with the variable T. So R would be like your Y, T would be like your X, but use R and T. How would we write this equation? Not R divided by T. Are you raising your hand or not? Okay. Think about how we write inverse equations in general. T is going to be in the denominator. How would we set up the rest? Eva. Not X. What are we missing?
K.
K. So R equals K over T. Just like our regular inverse equations, but instead of Y and X, it's R and T. Okay. So if R is like Y and T is like X, we can use our K equals Y times X to find K. So 168 times 24. What would our K value be?
$4,032.
Then take that K value, put it back into your original. So R equals 4,032 all over T. Then look and see what you have, what you're solving for. We need to find R when T is 30. Put 30 in, figure out what R is.
Oh. 134.4.
134.4. If we multiply that by 30, we should get 4,032. So that's how you know that works. Questions on that one? If no questions, go to the next page. We're just going to do a couple more and then stop for today. Starting with 3. Now we have variable y varied jointly with p and q. So think about how we were just writing our jointly equations. How would we set this up? Eva. You're missing one thing. K, P. Now that we have our equation, all the numbers that are given first, we're going to put all of those in. So y is 144. We don't know our k. P is 12. Q is 8. Then you're going to multiply 12 and 8 and start solving for k. So we would get 96, divide both sides by 96. What is your k value? Take that k value, put into your original equation. So y equals 1.5 p cubed. Then look and see what you're solving for. That way you don't put in the wrong thing somewhere else. We don't know y, but we're given p and q, so put those in. So we know k is 1.5, p is 15, q is 25. Multiply those all together to figure out what y is. Eva. 562.5. The check for the jointly, you would have to take the number you found and the numbers you were given, 15 and 25, divide those and see if you get 1.5. So there's a little bit more work with those check process. Questions on that one? we're going to skip 4 and go on to 5. So variable t varies directly with the square of m. How would we set this up? Eva? You're missing something? Km squared. T equals km squared. Take the numbers you're given, put it in, start solving for k. So t is 8, m is 2. So you would square the 2 first, and then divide both sides by 4. Should get 2 equals k. Take that, put it back into the original. So t equals 2m squared. And then it asks us to find t when m is 4. What would your t value be? Because 4 squared would give us 16, and t would give us 32. Just like the last one, to check yourself, you would take that number you found and divide it by the numbers given. Questions on that one? Anthony?
Did you have one?
This?
Yeah.
That's a T. My box just.
What? I thought it was a one.
It's fine. Okay. Other questions? So I know we skipped over 4. Next class we're going to do some more word problems that have jointly and combined and things like that. Did we want to see 4 before we stop for today? Yes. Okay. So we'll do 4 and then we'll be done. For 4, it tells us the volume V varies inversely as the pressure in a container. So the V would be like our Y. It doesn't say what the variable for the second one is, but that would be like your X. Whether you call it X, call it P, doesn't matter. Then it says if the volume of a gas is 200 cc when the pressure is 1.6 liters per square centimeter, before we start that, set up your equation but using V. It's inversely. How would we set this up? Inversely, we're dividing.
Are we going to use the numbers?
Not yet. We're just setting up the equation. We have to divide by X. K over X. Okay. So that's our equation. Then we can use our numbers to find K. Since it's inverse, we're multiplying. Multiply that, tell me what you get. Then it asks us to find the volume to the nearest 10, so that might be a decimal. We're going to put that back into our original. V equals 320 over X. We're looking for volume when the pressure is 2.8. Divide that and tell me what you get. Eva. And then our label, since it's a word problem, would be CC. I don't know what that stands for. I probably figure that out. You could use the check method, but that would be your final answer. So the combined is just, you might have one that's direct, one that's inverse right after each other. Some that have direct that are square or square root, you just have to pay attention to the wording. Right. So we're going to stop there. We're going to do more word problems next class as well as more practice. There aren't any Khan Academies with this. I believe there's a Delta Math if you want more practice with this. Next class I'll also give you your review and things like that. So you can